The Seekonk Speedway podcast series is a production of Seekonk Speedway and Souza Media. For more information on Souza Media, visit kylesouza.com. And for more information on Seekonk Speedway, visit seekonkspeedway.com.
All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into the Seekonk Speedway podcast series. Another edition of the podcast is about to begin. I want to thank everybody for joining us here this week as we recap some of the racing at the Action Track of the East from 2023. If you're new to the podcast series, welcome. My name is Kyle Souza, the owner of Souza Media, and here at Seekonk Speedway, we race on Friday and Saturday nights throughout the summer. Our Fast Friday series is underway. 2 events in the books for them. Our NASCAR Saturday series has not seen a full event since we spoke last here on the podcast. I'll get to that in a little bit. I want to start by recapping some racing that took place on May 26th. It was Memorial Day weekend, the opener of the Fast Friday series. We're going to go through that event first, and then we'll kind of go from there on this edition of the Race Day Rewind podcast. Let's start off with it. May 26th, 5 divisions strong, kicking off our Fast Friday season for the 2023 campaign. The Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Bandits and Outlaws, the Everett's Auto Parts Sport 4s, the Helger South Coast Power Equipment Pure Stocks, and the Nick's Pit Stop Legend Cars. Both Bandolero divisions so far this season have seen 2 events and 2 great events on opening night in the Bandits, the younger of the divisions. Parker Davis picked up his first career Seekonk win in the number 14. Mike Hannafin finished second. Wuka Dib was third. Nick Uhrig Jr. fourth. And Carl Saddle Jr. rounded out the top 5 on opening night. Parker Davis has since gone on to win another Seekonk Speedway Grand Prix Bandolero Bandit race on June 2nd. So he's 2 for 2 to start the season. In week 2, second place went to Sam Macedo. Macedo struggled in week 1. Didn't finish the race, comes out in week 2, finishes second, and third place in week 2 went to Uhrig in the number 11. So Parker Davis, 2 for 2 in this division, jumped out to a good start. Mike Hannafin has 2 top 4 finishes. He's second in the early points. Luca Dib with 2 top 5s. He's third. Nick Uhrig's been pretty consistent, a 4th and a 3rd in the first 2 races. He's 4th in the championship standings. And also up there right now is Sam Macedo. I mentioned he struggled in the first week, didn't finish the race. But in week 2, he was contending up front early, got involved in an accident, had to go to the rear, and still able to get up there and finish in second spot. So a great run for him in the number 16, your defending champion. Trying to rebound after a tough first week, and he was able to do the job of doing that in the second week. So in the Bandits, our youngest division in this Bandolero in the Seekonk Youth Racing Association class, Parker Davis off to a great start. 2 for 2, can't get any better than that. We will see how he shakes out in week 3 of Fast Friday racing. See if he can go 3 for 3 to open the season, which would be very impressive in the Bandolero Bandits. In the Bandolero Outlaws, this is our older division of Bandoleros, a little bit faster, a little bit more experience behind the wheel in this division. And we've seen 2 phenomenal races. As far as I'm concerned, these might have been the 2 best races we've seen all year at Seekonk Speedway. And they came in the Bandoleros in the youth racing division. Week 1, Ryan Vanasse Jr. picked up the win. He beat his cousin Colin Vanasse and Brent Robidoux to the finish. Bryson Robidoux was 4th, and Brady Wakefield rounded out the top 5. Now, that was a very close race up front between Vanasse, and Robidoux. Add Bryson Robidoux into the mix. It was really the Vanasse family versus the Robidoux family in week 1, and it was Ryan Vanasse Jr. coming out on top by a small margin over Colin. Brent was 3rd by a small margin over Bryson. They had a great run in the first week of the season. A phenomenal start to the year for those drivers. Also a good start to the year for Wakefield. Had a top 5 in week 1. There's not much you can say bad about that. Surprise in week 1 was Andrew Gomes. Had a problem, involved in an accident, was not able to finish in the number 10. He was a contender down the end of the year last year, won some races, and was in contention for the championship in the Final 4 in the Drive for the Cup. He does not get off to a good start in week 1, finishing towards the rear of the field. Week 2, similar names up front in a different order. Brent Robidoux takes down the win in week 2. Ryan Vanasse Jr. finishes in the 2nd spot. 3rd spot went to Andrew Gomes. A nice rebound for him to get up there into the top 3 and grab a podium run in the 2nd week after struggling week 1. 4th place was Colin Vanasse in the 2nd race of the season. And rounding out the top 5 was Dylan Calabro, a new name in the top 5. But 3 drivers have top 5 finishes in every single race, both of them so far. Ryan Vanasse Jr., Colin Vanasse, and Brent Robidoux. Those are the top three in the championship standings. In week 2, it was a phenomenal battle right down to the wire, side by side, inches apart, coming down to the finish line between Ryan Vanasse Jr. and Brent Robidoux. And Robidoux inches him out literally by a few inches to pick up the victory in the second week for the Outlaw division. Great racing in this division all year. I know it's going to be. It's been so far. Some of our more experienced youth racing drivers in this division, and really these guys I'm talking about up front, have been doing it for long enough that they're kind of veterans in a bandolero, if that's crazy to not crazy to say. So expecting Andrew Gomes to get up there and continue to run up there weekly. Calabro had a great run. RJ Murphy's been impressive in the beginning part of the season in the number 82. I'm expecting good runs out of him this year, possibly a win for the first time. And I know Brent Robidoux's got 2 top 5s, a win and a third. But Bryson Robidoux has been very impressive as well, behind the wheel of the number 38, his brother. And excited to see what those Robidoux can do as the season goes along. They've both been very impressive. And I think as we get closer and closer to the Sunoco Drive for the Cup in 2023, which I know seems like a long time away in September, but it's going to come up pretty dang quick based on my experience here in racing at Seekonk Speedway. The year goes by quick. We're already into June. I think these drivers are going to be in contention right from the beginning, right to the end. And I think the champion is probably going to be decided between one of those drivers I've mentioned here in the Outlaw division. So after this segment, in our next segment, we're going to talk with both Brent Robidoux and Ryan Vanasse Jr. about that crazy run to the checkered flag and that inches apart battle. We'll see what they had to say and what it's been like to race each other and everybody else in this division so far in 2023. So stick around for that in a little bit. Let's move on to the Everett's Auto Parts Sport 4 division. 2 great races in the book for them in 2023. 2 different winners, but a similar situation. A couple of names up front in both races so far. Week 1, it was Jared Freitas holding off Mikey Lafort and Henry LaValle to take down the opening day win. Freitas got out front. Lafort had to start from the rear. When it came down to the end, Lafort got up to second, but not enough to catch Freitas and contend for the win. In week 2, flopped the top 2. Lafort took the Richie Helger racing ride to victory lane in the second week in the number 13, and Jared Freitas finished in the second spot. So, Freitas over Lafort in week 1, Lafort over Freitas in week 2, and those 2 drivers are tied in the championship standings with 1 win apiece early on in the season. Week 1, Henry LaValle had a good run, grabbing a podium finish in 3rd. Taylor Bowser was 4th, and Richie Johnson finished in the 5th spot. The second week of the season, Crystal Murray, our defending champion in this division, who struggled in week 1, rebounded nicely, got up there in the podium, finishing in 3rd. LaValle was in 4th, so 2 top 4 finishes for him, and a nice solid 5th place finish by Richie Johnson in the second week. 2 5th place finishes for him. A name, when you look at this division, that many people probably didn't expect to win right away to open the season. He's been very consistent with 2 top 5s. I know we're only 2 races in, but look out for him to be a contender this year as well. When you look at some of the other drivers in this division, I mentioned Crystal Murray. Tough start to the year in week 1. She had some mechanical issues. Week 2, rebounds pretty nicely to get back on the podium. Tyler Duhanchik had an awful start to the year for somebody we expect to be contending for wins. Had a problem week 1, was involved in a nasty wreck in week 2. So not a good start to the year for him. We'll expect him to rebound as the season goes along in the Phil's Propane number 48. So those are a few names to watch in this division. 2 races in. Jared Freitas and Mikey Lafort, your 2 winners. Both of them top 2 in both races. We will see if somebody can add a 3rd name to the list coming up on our 3rd Fast Friday of the season on June 9th in the Sport 4s. Helger South Coast Power Equipment is a proud sponsor. I am stumbling over myself here on this edition of the podcast. Let's try that again. Retake. Helger South Coast Power Equipment is the proud sponsor of the Pure Stock division in 2023 once again. And no surprise here, same story as some of the other divisions. A couple of drivers been up front for both events. Scott Sestodio has 2 wins in 2 races, adding to a list of contenders here in this division this year. A driver that's been around for many, many years in Sestodio, one we're expecting to be up front at the beginning of the year, and a potent combination for him. Back behind the wheel for the first time in many years on the Pure Stocks, and he's doing it in the defending championship car that was driven by Jeremy Lambert. We've seen some great success out of that car last year to win the championship. Sestodio took it back to his place over the winter, went through the whole thing, improved on a few things on it that he saw that needed to be better, and boom, success right out of the gate. 2 feature wins in 2 weeks for the number 15. So a great start to the year for him. Consistency been the name of the game for Mike Hendricks. 2 third-place finishes to open 2023. This is a guy that went to victory lane a couple times last year, expecting him to do that this year. Good start to the year for him with 2 top 3 finishes. Some other names we've seen up front in week 1. Custodio won over Ethan Souza, finished 2nd. Hendricks was 3rd. Jared Cadera had a good run week 1, finishing 4th. He also finished 5th in week 2, so 2 top 5 finishes for him. Josh Baddock had a great run in the first week, getting a top 5 finish. Not so hot in week 2, but he's another name we'll watch as the season goes along. After a tough first week for Danny Massa, not the performance he was looking for outside of the top 5, he rebounded in the second week to get a nice 2nd place finish behind Custodio. Greg Perry also leading the race on opening night, had a flat tire, rebounds in week 2 to get a top 5 finish in the number 0. So Custodio, Hendricks, Souza, Massa, Cadera, Baddock. It's just a long list. Add Greg Perry to the list, and add a guy like Sam Lincoln, who's the defending champion of the Everett's Triple Crown. We haven't seen really put together a phenomenal run this year yet. We know we're still early, but 2 races in, we're expecting that out of him. And Nick Brightman's had a fast car both weeks, just did not shake out his way in the number 5, had a couple penalties against him, and he'll clean that up, expecting him to be up front and in contention for feature wins here. That car is certainly fast enough to do it in the number 5, the Brightman Racing entry. So good start to the year for the Pure Stock division. Rather clean 2 25-lap races, and Scott Custodio 2 for 2 in the Helger South Coast Power Equipment Pure Stocks. Nick's Pit Stop Legend Cars, week 1, had an awful race. There's no other way to say it. Very bluntly, awful race for them. A lot of accidents, a lot of trouble, and it happens from time to time. Of course, it happened on opening night. That's a shame. Wrecked some good cars, but overall, Brandon LaBelle picked up the win in week 1, and that is a story we want to touch on for sure. A driver that's been trying to win in this Legend Cars division for a few years now, comes out strong, swinging out of the gate, and picks up his first career win on opening night. Now, he was not able to make the second race of the season due to a family commitment with his sister, so he didn't run week 2, but he does get his first career win in week 1, and that is a phenomenal way to kick off the season for this young gun, expecting him to see some phenomenal run throughout the 2023 season. I don't think that's going to be his only feature win in the number 4. Nick Bulkley finished in the 2nd spot in the number 27. Ty Leclerc was in 3rd. Jacob Burns 4th. And Isaiah Newcomb rounded out the top 5 in week 1 of the Legend Card Series. Week 2, it was Burns taking down the win. His 2nd straight top 5 finish. He picks up a big feature win in the Nicholas Kohler Racing mount. Isaiah Newcomb finished 2nd in week 2. Josh Parsons rebounded from a tough first week, finishing in the 3rd spot. Mason Tessier, similar story for him. Nice rebound to get 4th in week 2, and rounding out the top 5 was Buckley again in the number 27. So you see some consistency in some of these names that we're talking about up at the front of the field. And Legend Cars had a green to checker race in week 2. So you go from a disaster in week 1, to put it very bluntly, to a phenomenal race in week 2, green to checker. So impressive start to the year for the Legend Cars in week 2. Week 1 was not great, but week 2 was a good sentiment of what we're going to see from them, I think, this year. And some contenders, we think we're going to get to victory lane here. Mason Tessier won a couple times last year. He'll get back there. Josh Parsons will win this year, I'm sure. Isaiah Newcomb, 2 top 5 finishes, right on the bumper of Jacob Burns last week. I'm sure he'll get up there. It's just a lot of drivers in this division I could see picking up wins. And I think before long, you're going to see some new names in victory lane. And the Legend Cars, one of our most competitive divisions, rough and tumble at times, like it was in week 1. But week 2, these guys turned it around and put together a phenomenal race to go out there and run in the top 2, 3, and dice it up without a caution flag in the Nick's Pit Stop Legend. So 2 weeks in the books for Fast Friday. Fast Friday rolls right on here, coming up on June 9th, June 16th, and June 23rd. Should be a great start to the season for the Fast Friday series as we wrap up the month of June. There are 2 races in. Of course, they do start later than our Saturday divisions due to some, just the way how the track schedule goes every year. They don't start till the end of May, early June. And then you look at the track schedule, Fast Friday coming up on June 9th is the 3rd race of the season for them. Saturday's only got 2 in the books due to Mother Nature. So, not exactly what we wanted to see over the course of the season, but As 2023 rolls on, it should be exciting to watch this division and how all of our 5 Fast Friday divisions evolve with new winners, champions, and contenders for the Sunoco Drive for the Cup and our 2023 Fast Friday Track Championships as we get to the middle of the season. We're going to take a quick break on this week's edition of the Seekonk Speedway Race Day Rewind Report. Thanks for joining us. When we come back, we're going to chat with 2 hot drivers in the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Outlaws. Opening week winner Ryan Vanasse Jr. and second week winner Brent Robidoux are going to join us together. The first time I've ever done this in the podcast with 2 drivers on at the same time. They're both very fast, both very competitive, and clean on the track. We'll talk to them about that when we come back around the turn. You're listening to the Seekonk Speedway Race Day Rewind podcast series. All right, welcome back. Second segment of this week's edition of the Seekonk Speedway Race Day Rewind Report. I mentioned earlier 2 Fast Fridays are in the books for 2023. 2 good races in all the divisions, really. But I've been really touching on this Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Outlaw division and the success that these drivers have had. A lot of them have come up through the ranks, starting in the Bandit division and now working their way into the Outlaw division. And I said earlier, some of them are veterans, and I mean that seriously. A couple of guys we're going to talk to here have been in these Bandoleros for a few years now, and I feel like they're at the top of their class, somewhat because of their experience, somewhat because if they have great prepared cars by themselves and their families, and also because of their ability behind the wheel and the smart decisions that they've made in the first couple of races. We have Brent Robidoux and Ryan Vanasse Jr. joining us. I'm going to start with Ryan because I'm going to go in chronological order. He won on opening night, which was May 26th on Memorial Day weekend. Brent picked up the win on June 2nd. Guys, this is the first time that we try 2 people at the same time on the podcast. And I'm doing it with 2 youth racers, so kind of excited to go here. Let's start with you, Ryan. Tell us what it's been like here the first couple weeks. Obviously, you've been fast. It seems like you're going to be a contender all year in this division.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty surprised that we had a really good start to this. Me and my dad have been preparing all winter to get really good results like these, and it's been a good result so far in the season.
Well, so a win there on week 1, a second place in week 2. And Brent, good start for you as well. I know you want to... You probably wanted to win both races, just like Ryan did, but I don't think you could ask for much better either here. Good start to the year for you with 2 podium finishes, especially that win on Friday night as well.
Yeah. To start off the season as well, with 2 podiums, with a 3rd place finish and a win. It feels really great to have this start of the season, because last season, I think most people know, it was not that good. We didn't have a good start, but this year I'm feeling a lot better mentally about how the season's going to go.
Well, good confidence, certainly, for these 2 drivers. Ryan, let's go back to you here. Let's talk about this past Friday night. I mentioned maybe I'm going to come out and say this now. I know it's June, but this may be one of those races when we get to the end of September and our champions are crowned and we start looking back at the top 10 moments, which we've started doing from Fast Friday. This may be one of those races that makes that list. It was that good of a race on Friday night. Ryan, I know you had to start a little bit further back because you won the first week. But take me through this race and especially what it was like for you on that last lap to get a run under Brent and then have to drag race him pretty much from the back straightaway all the way to the start-finish line to try and get the win.
Yeah, I mean, I started pretty far back on the outside, just like last week. But I was just going to save myself and make some moves around people, but not that bad. Once I got to the end, I was really starting to get aggressive so that I could get at least a 2nd place. So then when we came in the white flag, Brent gave me that tiny piece of room, and I took it, and he gave me good space, which was really good racing by him, and that's why I like Brent racing with me, because he's one of the best drivers to race against. And I took it, and I thought I was going to get away from him, but his car is really strong on the outside, and he got me at the line. I was like, how?
Yeah, I remember right after the race, they were kind of looking at each other like, how the heck did that happen and who won? It was very close. Of course, from my angle on the flag stand, looking down at it, I wasn't even sure who won. It was that close. And that's why we have the transponders. 2 1,000ths of a second was the official difference between the 2 of you. Brent, how about from your perspective? You know, you probably in the lead, I think it's a little bit more nerve-wracking, right, compared to being second. And you were almost able to, not almost able to, you almost gave it up there in the last lap, but you were able to outleg them down the front straight. That was a really good race between the 2 of you. How about from your perspective?
Early towards the middle of the race, I had a gigantic lead, and I was thinking I was just going to cruise to it. But then those few final restarts, Ryan was getting closer and closer, and coming to taking the white flag when he got on the inside. I was just thinking in my head, it was on. But we had a really close finish, very close. And at the start finish line, at the end of the race, I thought Ryan beat me. I thought I just threw it away, but apparently I beat him.
Wow. So how about this? Opposites. Ryan thought he won, but he actually didn't. Brent thought Ryan won, but Brent actually won. That's very interesting as we listen to these two kind of break that down. Let's talk about with each of you briefly on the competition you've been racing so far this year. I know it's you guys have been two of the top contenders. But Ryan, for you've been racing your cousin, Colin Vanasse, has had a great start to the year as well. And, of course, you've been racing Brent, and you've had names like Brent's brother, Bryson. It's very competitive, it seems like to me, out there in this division. And it's got to be tough for you, Ryan, to race Colin. And then there might be a little btle bit of, is there a cousin war going on there to see who beats the other? Because I know Colin's looking for his first win.
I really hope so. He gets when either Colin or Bryson this year. They're really good racers, too, also. They recently came against me and Brent, and it's really fun racing against them, and hopefully one of them gets the win.
Yeah, what about for you, Brent? I mean, Bryson, obviously you guys have a brotherly competition going on there, I'm sure. But again, competition's been really strong here, and you're probably happy to see how the results have been, but it definitely hasn't been
difficult competition-wise. Like all of us, like Ryan, Colin, my brother, we're all really close, especially on the racetrack. But like outside the track, we're all really good friends. But especially on the racetrack, like we're all friends before and after the race. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And these two are 100% right. The camaraderie in the pits and the excitement you see from these guys to be friends with each other is something you don't see a lot of at the upper levels of racing, especially even here at Seekonk. You don't see a lot of the sportsman guys get out of their cars and, go laugh with each other and throw a football around. It's just not the nature of what it is. So certainly in the Bandolero division and our youth racing is very strong, and they have a very strong connection with each other as well. Ryan, obviously you want to win more races this year. You want to contend for that championship, but in order to do that, there are so many people that help both of you. Let's start with you, Ryan. Who are some of these people do you want to thank that help you get to the track each week?
I want to thank my dad, my uncle, Nick, for helping me out, and my family helping me out, getting me the best parts that they could for me all year long. Just getting it ready for winter, just to do really good for these two races, and on, hopefully winning the championship. I got to thank Anchor Paws Rescue, Rhode Island Surrounding Clowns, RHR, NA Auto Parts, International CDO, Tony Seafood, and Ocean State Oil.
Well, great list of sponsors there. And that's very important in any level of racing, but certainly, of course, with these youngsters in the Bandoleros. Brent, how about you? You got a long list as well, I'm sure, and some people that are very supportive to you to help you go out there now.
I just want to thank people like my mom
on a weekly basis.
And my dad, who both of us put multiple hours into me and my brother's car. Just my whole family, everyone at the track that helps us out sometimes if we need it. I also want to thank Helgers Uncle's Power Equipment, Finn Trade Excavating, and Toronto Apartments, and Signed by Six.
So it's very interesting that both of these drivers mention their parents, and obviously at this level of competition, when you're racing in the Bandolero divisions, the parents play an important role. And of course, both sides of the spectrum here: the Robidoux family with 2 competitive Bandoleros on a weekly basis, and the Vanasse family with 2 competitive Bandoleros and upper divisions as well. For the Vanasses, of course, Ryan attempted to compete in the Act Tour race before the rain last weekend. Of course, we'll see him back out there at least once or twice with that car this season, especially when Act comes back in August. But they're not only working on these Bandoleros, they're also working on the Saturday night cars from time to time as well. I know Brent's father, John, is a staple in the pit area, working with some other cars and a former competitor himself. So families are very competitive. Of course, they have a lot of fun together, and they work very hard in their race cars, and it's certainly showing here in the first couple weeks of the season. Well, guys, thanks for being the first duo here to join me on the podcast. Appreciate it very much, and look forward to seeing you guys at the races and seeing if anybody else can beat you, or you guys are going to just toss the wins back and forth here as the season goes along.
Probably. It's probably good.
What do you think, Brent? Is that possible? Well, we're going to see. Of course, they'll be competing against names like Colin, Bryson, that we mentioned. Mikey Lafort, Jordan Duquette, RJ Murphy, Dylan Calabro, Andrew Gomes, and so many more. Very competitive, and a lot of cars in this division. 15 cars minimum in the first two races of the year. We had 16 week one and 15 week two. So competitive division, and a lot to look forward to here in the Seekonk Youth Racing Association Bandoleros as the season goes along. We're going to take one final break on this week's edition of the Race Day Rewind. Thanks to these two for joining us. When we come back, we'll preview Friday and Saturday night racing as the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour invades Seekonk Speedway this weekend. Come back in a second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the white flag is out on this week's edition of the Seekonk Speedway podcast series presented by Souza Media. Welcome back to the show, and big thanks to both Ryan Vanasse Jr. and Brent Robidoux for joining us. Some great conversation there, wasn't it? Hearing from some of our youth stars at Seekonk Speedway and how they plan to shake things out in the 2023 season and what they are thinking is coming up in the next couple weeks, and a phenomenal battle last Friday. If you want to watch that race, you can check it out online at Seekonk Speedway TV. That is Seekonk Speedway on YouTube, where all of our races are put up for the 2023 season. The races are put up a week. They're put up by the week of the next race. Most times within a couple days, the races end up online. So check them out, and especially that Bandolero race from June 2nd. Phenomenal show, and really looking forward to see what that Bandolero division does the rest of the season, and those two drivers and all of our Fast Friday drivers in 2023. I want to take this time here in the final segment to preview some upcoming action. I mentioned Fast Friday returns on Friday, June 9th. Full card of racing with the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Bandits and Outlaws, the Sport 4s, the Helger South Coast Power Equipment Pure Stocks, and the Nix Pit Stop Legend Cars. It's round one of the Triple Crown Series for the Sport 4 division on June 9th, 30 laps. Regular racing for the rest of the division. 7 o'clock racing starts. Gates open at 6. And tickets are just $10 online, $13 at the gate. Kids 12 and under are free on Fast Friday. So check that out for sure. And then the big one coming up on Saturday night, June the 10th. The NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour is in town for their first visit since 2019. Their first and only visit of the season for the Seekonk 150. 150 laps. Yes, the caution flags count in this division. But they're going to bring in a stout list of talent for this main event. I'll get to that in a minute. But due to some rainouts and some issues we've had at the track with weather, this is a big night for our weekly divisions as well. The NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Racing Series classes. The Pro Stocks are off when the Modifieds are in town as usual. They get a chance to hang out at home, relax, or come and check out the racing, get a week off. They've had a few too many weeks off, I think, in their opinion. So should be excited to see what happens there when the Pro Stocks get back coming up on Saturday night, June 17th. They will be in their Triple Crown race when they return to race for the first time in what will be a whole month for them. But June 10th, we've got the late models for 45 laps in round one of their Everett's Auto Parts Triple Crown. The Chaz Auto Body Sport Trucks, 35 laps in round one of their Everett's Auto Parts Triple Crown. And the Helger South Coast Power Equipment Sportsmen, 35 laps in round one of their Triple Crown. 3 Triple Crown races to accompany the Wheel and Modified Tour. I don't think you can ask for anything other than that. The Sport Trucks are 2 races in. And the 2 winners so far, Brittany Campbell and Jake Vaneda. Rick Martin and Mike Duarte have been very consistent in the early going of the season, both grabbing podiums in both races. Those are a few names to watch there in the 35-lap Truck Triple Crown. Some other ones, Amy Arsenault, Darrell Church, Marissa Morgan, Bobby Tripp, Tom Scully III. The list goes on and on there. Can't forget about former champion Mike Cavallero either in the number 80. The Sportsmen, 35 laps in their Triple Crown race, first one of the year. Ryan Lanham and Adam Petty have finished on the podium in both races so far this year. Petty has a third and a second. Lanham has a win and a third. So those are 2 drivers you could probably bet on to have a good run in 2023 to kick off their season so far with the Triple Crown race coming up on June 10th. Defending champion Craig Pianca, Chad Baxter, Week 2 winner Steve Axon, Tyler Almeida, Don Perry, Chris Rio. Those are some other names to keep an eye on there in the Sportsmen. That is a very competitive division and one of our most competitive at the action track of the East. So we'll keep monitor on that in their 35-lap feature coming up on Saturday night. And the late model division off to a good start. Week 1, it was Vinny Renegado, a former champion, picking up the feature win. Second race of the year, Jacob Burns, who I talked about earlier, picked up a legend car win on June 2nd's Fast Friday program. He won back on May the 20th in the late model, so 2 different winners there. Defending champion Mark Jennison off to a good start in that one. 2 podiums for him in 2 races in the late models. Mark also has 2 podiums in 2 races in the Pro Stock division, where he is also the defending champion. Other names to watch in the late model Triple Crown: Chase Belcher, Wilco Brun, Richie Murray, and many others. Jerry DeCaspari Jr. has had a tough start to the year for his standards, and Ben Fast just didn't get the finishes. He will be back in the Triple Crown race for 45 laps, trying to silence everybody that hasn't seen him do it so far yet this year. Big-time, multiple-time former champion. I know he's got the speed and the drive to do it, and will not be surprised at all if Jerry parks in victory lane on the Triple Crown Series night on June the 10th. The other big race on that night, of course, I mentioned, is the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, their 6th race of the season. Coming into the auction track of these, I'm going to pull up their first 5 races of the year here online and give you a little insight about who's run up front so far this year. They opened their season down at New Smyrna Speedway. Ronnie Silk picked up the win in Speed Weeks in February. Week 2 of racing was at the end of March. Richmond Raceway, Austin Beers picked up his first career Modified Tour win. 5-6, May the 6th, the duel at the dog at Monadnock. It was Doug Coby driving the Tommy Baldwin Racing prepared entry to victory lane. Justin Bonsignor, the 3-time series champion, picked up the win at Riverhead. And back in the last event at Lee a couple of weeks ago, Matt Hirschman was in victory lane. 5 different winners in 5 races. Oddly enough, those drivers have all started inside the top 4 when they went to victory lane, so qualifying is going to be important for the Seekonk 150. Those names are a few to watch, of course. Silk, Bonsignor, and Coby and Hirschman, a couple guys you want to see up front. You know we're going to be up there towards the front of the field. Austin Beers, the son of former modified standout Eric Beers, who had won a Modified Tour race at Seekonk years ago. Austin's back in the front running this year on the Wheel Modified Tour for the first time in his career. Ben Strong to start the year, so we'll see him. Defending series champion John McKennedy is the real leader of this tour, coming into Seekonk as the reigning champion. Decent start to the year for him and the Middlesex Interiors team. Of course, the reigning champion wants to get back to victory lane. However, at the early start of the year, he's 5th in the championship standings. Good start for him, picking up 3 top 5 finishes. Consistent drivers so far, top 10 in every race for Ronnie Silk and Justin Bonsignor. They are the top 2 in the championship. Silk is ahead by 3 over Bonsignor in the early going in the championship standings on the NASCAR Wheelin' Modified Tour. So a good start to the year for the tour, and coming into Seekonk with names like Jake Johnson in the field, one of our local contenders for many years, winning a championship or 2 in the Legend Cars and winning in the late models. Woody Pitcat's a name many will know. He is in competition coming up on Saturday night. J.B. Fortin, a name some people may know. Craig Lutz, Anthony Nacella. Many of these drivers you've seen at Seekonk either with the Tour or the Open Modifieds over the years, and they are all coming back here on Saturday night, June the 10th, for the Seekonk 150. Now, tickets for that event are available online at SeekonkSpeedway.com. Tickets for all of our events actually are available online at SeekonkSpeedway.com. You can purchase them in advance, skip the lines, and save a little bit of money at the gate as well. It's a little bit cheaper if you buy them online compared to what it is at the gate. Coming up on June the 10th, of course, the Wheel Modified Tour is in town for the Seekonk 150. Tickets for that event, especially available online. Definitely suggest buying them online so you can beat the rush at the gates on race day. If you're going to buy a grandstand ticket for that event online, you can do that at SeekonkSpeedway.com. Those tickets are $35 online for adults. Children ages 6 to 12, they are $12, and 5 and under is free. If you buy them at the track on race day, there is a little bit of a bump in the cost. Same goes for Fast Friday. So definitely visit SeekonkSpeedway.com and get your tickets, not only for this weekend's events, but all events coming up during the 2023 season. Well, I think that's going to be the end of the 2023 podcast series for this week, at least as we get ready for a big weekend of racing on June 9th and 10th. You can find all that information online. Check us out on Facebook for some great advertisements and previews and who you can see up front. And our tickets, of course, at SeekonkSpeedway.com, and follow us on the website for all the latest news, whether it be results, point standings, sponsors, news. You can find just about everything online again at SeekonkSpeedway.com. I want to thank Ed St. Germain for pushing some buttons behind the scene. Thanks to Brent Robidoux and Ryan Vanasse Jr. for joining me on this week's edition of the Seekonk Speedway Race Day Rewind Report. For now, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you at the track. Have a great week, and thanks for listening to the Seekonk Speedway Race Day Rewind Report.